All right, welcome everybody. Let's go ahead and get this started. It's 12:01. So welcome to the first Lunch and Learn, which we've been covering here for January 2023. We're going to go over OneDrive today. I'm Director of Product Management here at Ntiva. My name is Ted Brown, and I'm going to go ahead and go through this journey with everyone throughout the year as we come up with different Lunch and Learn opportunities to train you on different opportunities to obtain more information about information within the Microsoft ecosystem. I want to thank everyone again that attended last year's webinars. We had a webinar series we put together where we covered a whole bunch of different wide range of topics within the Microsoft ecosystem, giving more kind of theoretical ideas of how you can utilize certain technology that Microsoft has today, from Azure Virtual Desktop to Intune, Power Automate. We have a lot of things up on our website to go back to any webinars from the past. So if you're interested in those, take a look at them. But for this time around, we decided to get a little bit more detailed and kind of get more focused on certain aspects of what people want to utilize on a daily basis. So what better way to talk about things used on a daily basis than go into OneDrive and talk about the powers that you can utilize within the OneDrive applications to bring time savings to you on a daily basis. So first off, for people that attained last time's webinars, we have the same housekeeping rules that we're going to get into. So any housekeeping agenda we want to say for any Q&A questions you have going on that you want to ask me as we go through this, put them into the Q&A chat of this webinar. Go ahead and answer all those at the end of this presentation. Also, if you have any other ideas as far as other Lunch and Learn opportunities you want to learn more about, pop them into the chat as well. I'll go ahead and take those in consideration as we further develop what we're going to be talking about in Q2, Q3, and Q4 later in this year. So let's get started. Let's talk about OneDrive. So during this meeting, we're going to talk about OneDrive in the cloud, kind of the foundation where everything resides within Office 365 from OneDrive, how to access that, how to utilize different options within the OneDrive application. Going into a little further, kind of going how to utilize OneDrive in File Explorer, which is pretty much how I mainly operate with OneDrive. And I think most people operate as well, because it really makes it a seamless transition, just working off your regular shared structure going into the OneDrive application. And then some OneDrive sharing opportunities, how to actually share files with other individuals internally as well as externally, and a couple other tips I find helpful to me on a daily basis. So let's go ahead and get into this for OneDrive into the cloud. Now, during this presentation, I do have this PowerPoint I put together, but I do have things I'm going to show you back and forth on my machine as well. So I'm going to go back and forth between this PowerPoint and also my own OneDrive on my PC, as well as a Mac, because there's some small little nuances, and I want to make sure to point those out. So when I think about OneDrive, I want to actually talk about the foundation of where it lives. So OneDrive will live in Office 365. And you can get to that by going to portal.office.com, and it'll get to your location right here. And then on this 9 dots at the top, you can select that and go into OneDrive. Now, this OneDrive location is my personal OneDrive location where I have all my files saved of what I utilize on a daily basis. If people utilize SharePoint, you can see this. This is really just a SharePoint page that's dedicated to the individual that has the OneDrive access. So by default, these files I have and folders I put in here are only accessible by me, Ted Brown. But I do have the capacity to share certain files and folders individual with people in my organization or outside my organization. And I'll get into that a little bit more as well, and kind of going through about what the sharing location might mean to you. Now, to utilize OneDrive within the cloud, because some people might not have Office applications installed on the computer, so they'll be utilizing it directly from this portal. You have different locations on your left-hand side for certain fast access to certain places. One, My Files, again, where everything is saved. Another place I utilize pretty frequently is Recent. This gives me my recent files that I've utilized, as well as having opportunity to come into further defined filters of looking for certain application types that I've utilized. So I'm trying to find something that I utilized recently that was just in the Word application. It'll go ahead and pop these things in here. The neat part about this, though, is not just stuff I've been working in directly in the OneDrive location. So it's not just recent files have come into this one portal right here. These are actually files I've utilized within team sites, as well as my OneDrive file, just going to the application and open them up. So it kind of correlates them all together. So any recent files I still have access to go to, and not just the files I specifically opened up from this web browser here. So very handy to find information you're looking for quickly. The other piece here, which I don't see a lot of people utilizing too much, is the shared function right here. So One thing that I find amazing about Office 365 is the accessibility to share individual files with different people within your organization or outside your organization to easily collaborate on folders or files together. Now, when you're working historically in a shared file location, I find the hierarchy pretty simple. You go into your H drive, probably for your home folder, maybe S drive for the shared function within that department. You kind of know where everything lives. But when you get into OneDrive and SharePoint, I find the one thing that might be cumbersome about it is you don't know where these files reside. People might share things with you, but they're not in your OneDrive. They might be in team sites. They might be somewhere else. And it's hard to kind of correlate and find where those information lives. So if somebody shares something with me directly, I can come into this shared location right here, and it'll show me all the files and folders that have been shared to me through Office 365. So maybe I'm trying to find something that was shared to me by Erica right here. I can see here quickly, I can sort by her name or do a search right here for maybe contract analyst or training videos. I can find that file and folder pretty quickly to know where to go to find the information I was trying to obtain that maybe I've been working on for a little bit. So I really find this a nice place to go to find information that people have shared to you. Alternatively, you have information you're sharing with other colleagues as well. So you can see this other file, this location here called shared by you. Now, this part is important. The shared by you, so you shared out a file, which I'll get into a little bit into this lunch and learn a little bit later near the end about how to share files. But when you've shared a file with somebody, there might be an opportunity where you no longer want to share that with them. For me personally, I work on some pricing and catalogs, so maybe a catalog might become out of date that I share with a group of individuals. I can come into here and click on this button right here and go to manage access. And then from here, I can go ahead and stop sharing. So anyone that had access to this file before, I click on stop sharing. And now the access has been removed to them. So I can make sure that any links out there that people might have access to in their inbox or maybe in a Teams chat is now removed from them. Well, the link is still there, but when they access that link, it won't be accessible. So they won't be accessing old information. So highly recommend if you're utilizing shared files within OneDrive, come in here and take a look at maybe what might be outstanding that you've actually had out there for quite a while, and maybe pruning it every once in a while to make sure that there's not any old information out there that shouldn't be out there. The other folder location that's kind of handy is the recycle bin. So as you delete files within OneDrive and put it out there, it will actually put this right into the recycle bin for recovery purposes if necessary. As you can see here, I was preparing some demos for this webinar I'm doing today, and these are ones I've kind of deleted out there so they pop into my recycle bin. So now I've gone over the left-hand side of OneDrive. Now you get into how to utilize OneDrive itself in creating new files and folders. So let me pop back over here to my OneDrive. And this right here, new, is kind of self-explanatory. I want to create a new folder or file. I can create a application document itself, click on Word, and maybe I don't have Office installed on my computer. So right here, I can actually open up the Word application and start working on this document and actually utilize that without having to open up Word on my PC. And I'll go ahead and get on to the next lunch and learn. We're going through web applications and how to use them more efficiently. I'll go through that in next month's February lunch and learn as we go through that seminar. Now, the other one we have here is upload, how we want to get files into it. This is a way for you to select this file or folder, bring up a browser location. I don't find this the most easiest way to get files into it. I personally like using the File Explorer because it's point and click, drag things over. It's really easy. So I kind of show you that in the File Explorer, but you also have the capacity to drag files over to this as well. So if you have your File Explorer, you can open this up and drag a file over and drop it into one of these files, these folder locations right here. So you make sure to have it saved where you want it to. The other piece here, which I think people will jump into for the OneDrive location, is the capacity to do the synchronization. So this sync button is how you put OneDrive onto your computer in an easy fashion to make sure it's installed and set up appropriately. So if you don't have OneDrive on your computer, you can open up your portal.office.com, come to your OneDrive and click sync. I'm going to click sync, but it's going to give me a message that I already have installed. You can see here opening up, and I have it already here. It's already syncing and ready to go. If this was not already installed on your computer, I'll have a quick little dialog box to install it, and we'll install it and set it up appropriately. So you have the application on your computer to be able to set up your files on your computer from this OneDrive location, which again, I think is the easiest way to use this solution. The other piece up here, I'll just spend a second talking about is automate. So I did a presentation, I believe in Q3 last year, all about the powers of Power Automate. This is a great utility utilized within Microsoft 365 ecosystem to help streamline and automate certain functions within your organization, and something you might be doing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis of putting together a easy point and click automation tool of saying, hey, here's how I want this application to run internally. So I did kind of a presentation on how you maybe an organization might want to purchase a PC with approval. So it could just be an easy form somebody fills out that says, hey, I want to purchase a PC, goes to their manager for approval, gets approved, gets sent over to the purchasing person to send an email in, and has a full-fledged authentication all the way through. So the form flows through from approver to purchasing, and you have documentation along the way. So it's pretty easy to put together. Anybody, even without any development skills, can actually do it because it's all kind of drag and drop to utilize Power Automate. So I'll probably do a lunch and learn later in this year on that, because I do think it's good information to utilize, because I see people putting together streamlined applications by themselves without having any development skills to help make sure that their day is utilized more efficiently. So now that you know how to utilize OneDrive in the cloud, you've clicked on that sync button and now it's installed the application on your PC, or maybe you're utilizing a Mac. So there's a couple of areas out here I want to make sure people are aware of, because it does come in handy, and it's going to be more specifically in the settings feature. But when you open up OneDrive or install OneDrive, you're going to see a application that appears like this. Now on your Windows, it'll come into your system tray down here, and you'll have this little cloud icon. You can right click on it, and you'll see that these are all the files that have been synced to my computer more recently. You can see these were synced here 8 minutes ago, 16 minutes ago. It has the open folder. So if I click on open folder, this will bring me to the file explorer location of where it's installed on my computer. So now these are all the OneDrive files on my computer. It also has the capacity to come in here, and maybe if you want to go directly to OneDrive itself, click View Online, it will populate to the View Online section, which is going to be this right here. Or maybe you want to go straight to Recycle Bin. Pop up, open this, it will get right into that same Recycle Bin location I showed you before. But more importantly, I want you to know go into settings, because there's certain settings I want to make sure everyone's aware of. Now, the one difference I find with Mac versus Windows is the setting button. I don't know why they use settings, and on Mac, you can see here, you have a OneDrive icon there. If I click on the same button, it goes preferences, but it is pretty much the exact same things. Preferences on Mac, settings on Windows. So within settings itself, right here at the top, start OneDrive automatically when I sign in. I do recommend, if you utilize OneDrive, it's always great to have that always running, because you want to make sure whatever files you're working on is automatically synced up to OneDrive. Because if you're working from multiple PCs, there's nothing worse than actually making a document that you think is synced between all your devices, but you don't have OneDrive running. So it's just got the latest edition on your PC itself, but maybe not your home computer has that latest information. So it's always great to have this set up at default, running at default. The other piece here, which I think is one of the key aspects of OneDrive, is this files on demand. And now this has been around for a little bit of time, but the files on demand is the ability for us to have maybe a terabyte of space within your OneDrive location. So that terabyte space resides in OneDrive in the cloud up here, but you might not have a terabyte of space to put onto your PC or Mac or your home computer. By utilizing files on demand, what this will do is it will actually install, it will bring down the entire hierarchy structure of your file and folders from OneDrive itself. But it will basically put on there as shortcuts to those files. So the files will not be directly downloaded on your computer. So you can have a terabyte of space being utilized in OneDrive and basically maybe a couple megabytes of space on your computer, but still have easily accessible access to all those files instantly from your computer. As you double left click on it, it will quickly download that one file that you need access to it. You work on it. And after you stop working on it for a day, you'll see that you're not utilizing anymore, and actually make sure that let's go ahead and remove it from your computer and just keep that thumbnail there, so you have access to it before later in the day. Now, also a little bit in this couple of minutes, we'll get into how to change that option, because maybe you're going on a trip that you don't have access to the internet. You can actually set certain files and folders to always be on your computer. So no matter what, it won't sync back up to the cloud. It'll always be there. So in offline mode, you can work on it. And then when you get back online, it will synchronize that back up. The other part here is the account feature. So if you click on the account, it'll show you where everything's stored, how much you're storing, and maybe different locations you're synchronizing. So OneDrive also works with Teams. So there will be a Teams lunch and learn I'll put together how to utilize the Teams application. So the Teams application have file and folder sharing access. And when you click the sync button within the Teams share site, it'll utilize OneDrive to keep everything synchronized. So you can see here, I utilize Teams heavily, and these are all the Teams I'm synchronized to this computer right here. So maybe there's something I want to stop sharing. I can easily click stop sharing, or maybe choose a different file location. So I can handle that all from this account location. The other key piece in here is backups. So I click on backups and manage backups. Now, this is something that can be set at a organization level or at the individual level. So with this setting here, I can say, hey, I want to make sure that everything on my desktop, my documents, and my pictures are automatically put into OneDrive. And when I access desktops on my computer, it's the desktop's location in OneDrive. When I access the documents section on OneDrive on my computer, it's the documents section in OneDrive. The key part about this is make sure that everything's actually backed up and saved to a centralized location in Microsoft 365 OneDrive. I find that as people kind of adopt this method, the necessary need to actually purchase additional backups on your computer is now null and void. Most people use everything in the desktops and the documents location, so all your files are synchronized up and you have every file recovery necessary. Also, on top of that, if people start utilizing Intune and Autopilot, it gets around the capacity of going, hey, I might need to recover the entire PC. With Intune, in which I did a webinar in, I believe, a Q3 as well, goes through how you can set up policies within Intune to basically make sure if you lose your computer, you can establish it back and it will log into Intune and bring down the applications that are necessary for business needs onto that computer itself. It'll bring down the settings. Maybe you have it set from OneDrive to always start at startup and always incorporate desktops, documents, and pictures into the OneDrive location. You can do that as a policy. So when the person gets their new PC that maybe the old one was corrupted and it got broken, they get a new PC, sign in, it'll bring all those policies down. It's set up exactly as the organization wants to get that configured for them. So it's set up the same way every time and done right without even having to touch a internal IT's team to set that up. So a very powerful tool, Intune. Highly recommend taking a look at it if you have not already. So that is the managed backups. And the other ones here, you have network. You can actually set it up so you can, if you have on accessing something from a place that doesn't have a high amount of bandwidth, you can limit how much bandwidth it's taking up because it is synchronizing files back and forth. So it can take up a little bit of bandwidth. The other piece here is the Office tab. These are all set by default. This talks about how you want to collaborate with files, want to allow collaboration. Again, with OneDrive, the ability to synchronize files between your computer is a key benefit, but also the ability to collaborate with other individuals on a Word document or Excel document. Hammering out a Word document together for a presentation you need to put together is very efficient in doing with multiple people into that same file and folder, the same Word document together, instead of sitting back and forth some review edits and go in that direction. So highly recommend keeping these defaults in there, but for some reason you want to turn them off, you could do it right from this Office tab right there. And again, as I showed, similar things from the Mac side of the house. Here's my Mac as well. I come in here, I can turn off or on my files on demand, come into backup as well, and manage how I want to have everything saved for my desktops and documents. So now they went through the settings there. Let's talk about File Explorer. So again, I find this is where most people utilize OneDrive because they're not utilizing it from the application. They're not utilizing it from the web browser. They're utilizing it from File Explorer, which people have been using since the dawn of using Windows applications, Windows operating systems. So how to use it just like a normal file and folder. So where you access files from, either you can click on that button I showed you before of open folder, or if you open your File Explorer, on the left-hand side here, you'll see two new locations, one called Ntiva. This will be for any of the shared sites that I have saved to my PC, and one for OneDrive-Ntiva. Granted, yours wouldn't say Ntiva, would say the organization name that you have built your 365 tenancy on. And so in here, I can have access to where my OneDrive location is. Now you can see here, I click on my PC, It gives me my files, my desktops, maybe my shared drive I have access to. So it's the same location, relatively speaking, that you utilize on a daily basis before OneDrive coming around. So I can click on OneDrive and you can see here, I have my 3A plus attached desktops, and this will exactly mimic what I have here in my file structure in the OneDrive on the cloud. So I can come into my OneDrive here. Let's go ahead and create a new folder. Call it demo. And I'm going to create a new file called new. Let's make a Word document. Test for demo. So really no different, again, how people would operate beforehand. You create new files, create new folders. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a test. Now, with OneDrive itself, when you actually create a file within that structure, this part up the left-hand side called autosave is on by default. If it is a application of, an Excel doc, a Word doc, a PowerPoint doc, anything like that, this will be on by default. So you actually have that file save as. So as you're working on this, it is actually automatically making sure that everything's synced up. So you don't actually have to worry about something crashing and not having the latest information there. So it's always saving it directly to your computer and then up to OneDrive. There's a button right here, or a column called status. Now this gives you information about what is happening with that file or folder itself. So I want to explain this a little bit because I do think it's key to understanding how OneDrive works. So here on the left-hand side, you get the name of all the folders or files you're working on. Then you have the status button. You can see here there are items that are shaped like a cloud. Now this means that this folder is saved up into the OneDrive location on the cloud, but it's just a file pointer or a folder pointer on your computer. So this, everything in attachments here, which I might not have anything in there. I'll come into my family here is where I utilize for my family. Anything in here on the cloud means that these files do not actually reside on my computer itself. So this is taking advantage of the files on demand. So let's see here, click on this. I can show you. I'll right click on this one. I'm on a Windows 11, so that's why this little view might look a little different to you all. If you utilize Windows 10, you can see here size on disk 0, or really it has 8 kilobytes right here in the cloud. So this does not take up any space on my computer. The other piece to look on this is these little icons to the right of it. So you can see here it has a little shape of a person. That means I have shared out this folder with somebody, so it's a shared location. And the other piece right here, again, on the right-hand side, is that paperclip, that shared link. When someone shares something with me, I put it as a shortcut within my OneDrive. So now here's a change management board, a group I have access to, that they want to share this folder with me. So I have easy access to access this file that's on somebody else's OneDrive because I put it into the shortcuts on my computer itself. Now, that gets a little bit into the statuses, but I want to make sure everyone understands the OneDrive files on demand and how to override it. So let's just take in consideration, maybe let's go back into this example. Say, hey, I'm going on vacation here. I'm going on vacation about a week, and I want to make sure that my hockey team knows what to do. So, and while I'm on vacation, I want to make sure to be able to access on the airplane because I don't want to pay the ridiculous fees for the Wi-Fi or anything like that. So I can go ahead and click into here, and you're going to see different options on here that you might not have seen before if you haven't used OneDrive. So you have the ability to share it, which I'll get into a second, but you have also the option to always keep this on this device. When I select this button, it's going to start this little squiggly status button. Now it gave me I believe it's a red check mark, put in here that it has been saved to my computer. So when I go on vacation and I access my computer and I want to get access to this file, I don't have to have internet access to be able to work off this file. So when I get internet access again, it will sync back up. The key part about this, though, to make sure people are aware of, this is only set on the device you're utilizing. So if you have multiple different OneDrive applications on different home devices or maybe a different PC, this will only save it to that device you're setting it to save at the time. So if I come over here to my Mac and I come to my OneDrive location, which if you go for Mac, if you go to your Go button, you'll see your same thing, OneDrive and Ntiva. And if I come down to my personal, you can see here, these are all the ones that are in the cloud. It would not actually have mine saved up there. So it would not, here's my family. And my hockey is now, you can see here, still has the cloud icon. It has not been saved to this computer. So make sure when you're doing this, you just know what PC or Mac you're doing it from. Now let's get into the sharing capacity of how to share files and what the different options are within OneDrive itself. So as you can see here, I have a little link on here, kind of a screenshot of how it looks, but I'm going to jump into my demonstration. So let's come back in to my demo and say this test for demo, I want to share it. So there's multiple different ways to share. You can right click on it. If you have the Windows 11, you'll see a little sharing icon right there. But on the Windows 10, it will open up into a folder structure like this, and you have a sharing button here. Now you can also do this from the application itself. You'll get the same exact settings. So if you see here, has the underline people you specify you can edit. If you select this, it gives you different options of what to choose of how you want to share this file. Or folder. You can do this with a folder as well. There is one here, anyone with a link. Now, this is typically turned off by default. And the main reason by this is if you share this link with somebody outside your organization, that means he or she can send to anyone else and they'll have access to that file. And that's something that is not going to be enabled by default. You have to actually override some stuff in 365 settings to make that work. So that will not be available. The other ones you have in here, if maybe I want to share this link with people in my organization, Ntiva. So anyone I share with this link that is part of the Ntiva organization will have access to see this file and go that direction. Or maybe I want to say, hey, people with existing access. What that means is if I have shared out this folder called _demo, anything to specific people, anybody with access to this folder has access to all these files. So if I share it in that direction, I can share this exact test for demo to a couple of people in my organization. If they had access to this folder _for demo, they would have access to this file. The other alternative is say specific people. So with the specific people, you can select this here and type in the name. Now here, you can actually type in somebody that's external to our organization. You want it, click that. So you can see here, it'll pop up saying, hey, this Ted Brown guy at Gmail is outside the organization. And here you can say how, create the share link. And now I have the share link. Now, there's other options in here as well. I want to make sure you see. Share is in. Click on this link. What they can do with this. So you have options of maybe you want someone to say, hey, they can only suggest reviews, or maybe they can only see it, but not make any edits on it. So I want to make sure that they can only view it because maybe I have put together a presentation or maybe instructions for how to do certain things. I don't want to have anyone have just the ability to change anything, especially if I'm sending it out to everyone in the organization. So I utilize this feature a lot of going to say, hey, people can only view with this link I'm about to send. Or maybe you want to stop the fact that they want to block the download. They can't even download that to the computer. So I can set it to just can view, specify the certain people, put in the person's name. Let's go ahead and do T Brown 11 again. There you go. I can copy this link. It'll create the copy link right there. And so I can actually copy that and put it into an email correspondence to this person and send it out there. So if I want, I can go ahead and click copy. I'm going to go ahead and open this up in private browser. So when that other Ted Brown person that wanted to correspond that's outside my organization, they open up their Gmail, they'll get a email that looks like this. It says, hey, you received a secure link to access this file. You want to send a code. So this is great because what this is doing is making sure that if I send this file, if this other Ted Brown guy sends a file to someone else, it will send a two-factor authentication to the person I want to have access to it. So it makes more of a multi-factor accessibility to this file itself. So right now in my Gmail, I'm receiving a code to be able to access this file. And again, it just takes a couple seconds to come through. But when it does, it will come through like this. Here you go. And for security purposes, here's your code. Again, it only has 15 minutes to be able to use before it is expired. So I can copy this over. Let's see, it comes down. I sent 2 of them over there. We'll see if it's the right one. It is the right one. So now here is this. And remember, I put this into a view mode, so I can't even select anything and edit anything to change any of these files. So I can only just view it from here. So it's a good way to actually share information outside your organization, because we do get asked a lot, is like, hey, how can I make sure that I securely share information with other individuals that are not a part of Ntiva or my corporation? And I definitely recommend taking a look at what is already built into Office 365, because you do have the capacity to go in that direction. I get people asking, how can I send files that have that are over certain size limits as well? You can go ahead and just create a link within a folder and send a whole folder if you want to have capacity to have all those documents in there that might be over the typical send limit. And I do find that a good way to share files back and forth. And again, and a little bit into other tips, I do find a good way to actually have people upload information for I want to view. So basically putting a kind of a nice little designation, creating a folder for just someone, sharing that folder out, and then sending it to them, and they can actually upload any information in that is important to me to receive. And that kind of actually gets into a little bit of our other tips I was about to talk about. So the ability to actually share files, you have the capacity with share folders. Same thing as well. So I can come into here. Now this one, right click on the folder level itself. I have that share icon. I come back in as well, click on the share as well, that direction, and copy this and send it to anyone that I want to have access to it. Again, making sure they specify the correct people and send that folder out. Again, I do that with empty folders so anyone can just kind of upload information in that's important to that person. And then I have access to that information as well. If maybe we're doing a quote for somebody, or maybe they want to upload something to us like a network diagram, we can do it securely through this method. So they're not just sending that information through email. The other piece I like about OneDrive a lot, which I do like a lot of aspects about it, is file versioning. So I come from an IT background. I've been, in help desk, so we always get calls all the time. I overwrote something. I was working on something, and I was working on it last night, and I made some edits. Doesn't look the same. Recover the file, please. I need this immediately. I have a presentation to go. It's always high stress. So I really find with file versioning is it really takes the pressure off the individual of making sure they have the exact file they need at any time, and giving the powers to their fingertips to be able to restore files that maybe they made a mistake on before, to make it go back to default how it once was. Now, I know you might say, hey, there was that previous versioning as well with coming out with, I think it came out in Windows 2003, of putting the power in there for individuals to go through and recover files, but they did have a small finite window, and it was specifically set up for certain thresholds of how your IT organization might have set up. So if it wasn't set up appropriately, it wouldn't give you a big verbose amount of backup options to recover from. So I really like it better in the OneDrive location. So for file versioning and for being able to recover files, you can do it right from your File Explorer as well. So I can come in here. Let's see here if I have a good one. I'll go to my family, basketball. So here I have a 2002 draft. Of course, we have the draft players for the basketball teams. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on it and go into show more options. And in here, you have another option here called show version history. So I click on version history, and this will give me the history of the files I've worked on, or the times I worked on it, with the dates. I can see here back to November 21st at 7 p.m. That's actually when I received this file, and I started kind of editing and modifying it. So from here, you have little dots on the side of it. So I can right click these more options and go, hey, here's the one I want to recover from the time I received it at 7:33. I can restore it right there. So I click restore, it will overwrite the file contents and the structure contents of that file. So we'll have whatever was created at the time at 7:33 p.m. on the 21st of November, and put that as the primary option on my OneDrive location. Or I want to download it to view it first before I recover over it. The beauty of it, if you do the restoration right here and click restore and you open up and go, oh, wait, that's not the right one, you still have the capacity going back to your original version, because this 4041 will always be out there at the top. So you can have multiple different iterations of this file versioning for the individual to have the power to recover the files right then and there without having to call IT immediately. So I really find that a nice big feature of OneDrive. Now, I've covered a lot, and I feel like it's mostly in more of the foundational knowledge and kind of understanding how to utilize it, but there's definitely more to learn about OneDrive itself. And so we're kind of coming up to the end of this presentation right here, but I want to make sure that everyone on this call is aware of a training program we have here at Ntiva called Training as a Service. And so I want to show this to you. So with Training as a Service, we have this program right here that will actually allow people to set up training programs for the individuals at their organization. So I can come in here as a employee, go to training or training courses, and I have different options within here maybe I want to learn about. So I'll go in here to Office 365, and here I have a 20 lesson, 1 hour and 38 minutes, all about OneDrive. So if you have people in your organization that want to actually get more detailed into certain aspects of OneDrive, we have a great video component here to train on pretty much everything you can ever think about of learning in OneDrive itself. And it goes through a nice little point and click of kind of, maybe I want to say, hey, I don't want to listen to all 1 hour and 30 minutes of this presentation. Maybe I want to learn more about co-authoring documents in OneDrive. I can select this lesson plan. And when this lesson plan, it will give me, it's a 2-minute clip of how to utilize certain aspects. So you can see here, you have add files and folders, create files and folders. You can select into whichever one you want. And this is a video-based training that will talk you through how to utilize it. So I call it almost like a training on demand going this direction. So I can utilize it myself, find something I'm interested in, go to it directly of how I want to actually learn that new segment with OneDrive. Alternatively, as an organization, you can create like a drip campaign, or maybe say, hey, a necessary learning campaign of saying, hey, I want all the people to be trained on OneDrive and set a target of like 3 months. And it'll actually go through and send people information to go through these training opportunities and do quizzes at the end. So you can see who has passed those quizzes and taken the opportunity to learn more about OneDrive. And this gets into more than just OneDrive. It'll go through Office 365, Teams, it'll go through, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Power BI, people interested in Power BI. So definitely a lot of good information here we can get access to you. So if you have any interest in this, please reach out to your account manager and we'll go ahead and get you started and get you more information how to utilize this service. So that's all I have for you today. It does look like we have a couple Q&A sections. So let me go ahead and jump into that. Let's see here. It has information here. So the first question here, which does look like the first question, which is a great question. OneDrive is not backed up by default, correct? Is this a issue if a team member deletes or overwrites a file? Now, there's a couple different nuances. I want to make sure to answer this question correctly. So OneDrive itself, the whole OneDrive is not backed up by Office 365. I do recommend, if you want to take a look at having an alternative backup solution to OneDrive itself, of utilizing our SaaS backup, which will have the capability of coming into OneDrive, coming into your Exchange, coming in all the SharePoint sites, and backing that up to an alternative location. Microsoft 365 does have a great uptime, and I've actually never seen OneDrive itself completely fail. But this does make sure that you take into account your risk as a business, if you have all your files and folders here, of having a low cost backup solution to everything that's in here, and you have the capability of restoring back to it. Also, the key part I like about this SaaS backup solution, it does keep everything for infinity. So the time we set this up, we can actually have this. So we'll keep this for 7 years, 10 years, 20 years, however long you need to obtain this file, you have access to it at that point in time. However, I just went over file versioning. So kind of going to the question itself, is an issue if a team member deletes or overwrites a file. So if a team member deletes the file, it will be in recycling bin for about 180 days. And after that, it will be purged. So at that moment in time, you would have to go to your backup utility, SaaS backup location, to recover that. If you overwrite the file itself, well, that will be in the file versioning section I have, where you'll be able to go into that file and recover from the version itself. And the neat part about this is when you take a look at the application and go into the file versioning, it'll tell you who did the edits as well. So I can see that, hey, maybe Joe Smith was the one that actually overwrote the file. I can take a look to see when he accessed it and recover the file right before. So you do have the capacity to correct an overwritten file, but if a person deletes it, it would be in recycling bin. And if it's not in recycling bin, it would be in the SaaS backup solution. So definitely recommend basically like how you would back up your share structure, I recommend backing up your SaaS solution as well. Can you please elaborate on the difference between Teams, OneDrive, and SharePoint? Another great question. And I think the answer to this one, I'll get further more details as we get more into how to utilize Teams itself, but they do kind of all live together. So OneDrive, I like to think of OneDrive as my personal drive itself. So everything that lives in OneDrive is in SharePoint, but it's the SharePoint structure that is just for me. Now you do have SharePoint itself that might be more organizational based, and that more is, I would think of that as a shared folder. So the SharePoint would have a document repository that would have the ability to be shared out to the department, to a group of people. Maybe everybody needs to see it. So it's more of a shared structure into the SharePoint location. And then you get into Teams itself. Teams is also another SharePoint folder repository, which again, I feel gets more into a shared across a group of people by default. So Teams would be either a department, maybe a small collaboration group, and then anything within that file and folder location would be available to that Teams itself. So how I always look about Teams and SharePoint, it's almost correlated to a shared folder structure, whereas OneDrive is almost like your own home drive, your desktops, your documents, and that's in that direction. But with the key difference is you have the capacity to share files across different people in the organization straight from your home drive and your desktops and documents pretty easily. So it makes it so it can kind of go back and forth, all because the back-end infrastructure is all SharePoint. So hopefully I answered that question correctly. If you have any information more on that for the person that asked that question, please reach out to me directly. I want to make sure I answered your question correctly. With this next question here we have is, with sync offline, is data protection an issue? If a team member is allowed to sync to a home PC, what happens to data if a team member leaves? HIPAA compliance. Excellent question. So little background on me, I come from a really strong background in remote desktop technology. I love making things accessible by a big group of people, by organizations. I love remote desktop technology and get more into Azure Virtual Desktop as well as being able to access your information no matter where you are from any device. Beforehand, I was a really big proponent of BYO, bring your own devices, because it really can have an individual come with their home PC and access any corporate direct information from that PC through a remote desktop application. Fast forward a couple of years, I've actually done the 180 flip. I do think it's important for people to understand data governance and how it's important to them as an organization. So if you're an organization that has HIPAA compliance, I recommend still utilizing your OneDrive, still utilizing everything like that, but having it locked down through Intune policies so it can only be synchronized to devices that are allowed to sync the information, which you can set it up in Intune. So you can create information going, hey, is this a Intune allowed device, which will utilize Azure Active Directory. And so that device would be authenticated to Azure Active Directory within the 365 information. It will validate that and then allow the syncs to occur. Anything that's not allowed to sync, it will not give you that option to actually sync that information. So you could really make the solution how you need to have it as an organization based on the compliance requirements to you. So yes, it needs to be taken in consideration. If you have data governance you're concerned about, I recommend actually building up an Intune policy to make sure that any of those devices are allowed corporate-owned devices. So if the employee does leave, you have the capacity to, one, wipe the device, know where it is, as well as obtain that information back. Where if it is a home PC that you don't have access to, it makes it a little stickier of a problem. You do have some wipe capabilities for removal, but again, if HIPAA is important to you, I recommend keeping everything onto a corporate information, not on a home PC. And last but not least, is there an administrator area for OneDrive to review end user OneDrive areas? So there is a administrator capability of taking a look at how people are utilizing OneDrive, take a look at space, where things are, but it doesn't, you have to, if you want to be, take a look at what type of files are being used. You can change settings to give yourself access into it if necessary. But again, most of it is giving reports on how much time is being sent into it as a total, as well as what the file repository is. So it does have capacity to give you that overall rich reporting without being too big brotherish and telling you exactly what's into it. And if you need to do that, you have to have change permissions, but it's not available by default. So I think that's all the questions right now. Is there any questions? We still have a large attendance. If you guys have any other questions that I haven't answered or want to get more detailed on the ones that I just answered, let me know. So we just got one coming through. No, I was like, you're very welcome. I'll go ahead and give this another minute for open questions. But I'll go ahead and just also make sure to say a big thank you to everyone that attended this. We had a large audience today, so I really appreciate it. I hope you learned a little something about OneDrive as well. I'm a big proponent of Microsoft OneDrive locations, the team sites, SharePoint. So we'll go ahead and get into in future webinars of how to utilize that aspect of the Microsoft ecosystem. Next webinar we're going to do is all about how to utilize the web applications, the ones you see here. Maybe you don't want to have people install the OneDrive location or the Office location, Office applications on the people's computers at home. It also is great for utilizing maybe front lines employees because they'll have access to web apps as well. So there's different options you can have in there as an organization. It looks like we might have had one more question come through. We have here for data backup, are you able to find additional folders for OneDrive to back up, like a desktop folder, for example? That's a great question. So for that one, you have typical default options of what to back up within Office 365's OneDrive. You'll have the documents, you'll have your desktop, you'll have downloads, you also have pictures. So I'll give you those 4 options to back up. If you're looking at the policies from Intune itself, the options you get right from the from when you actually look in the application itself is just going to be the desktop, the documents, as well as pictures. Now it will put everything that's underneath that though. So if you have changed your programs and say, hey, I want to make sure I have all my downloads underneath documents, it will pop that down there underneath your documents. So it's always backed up. So there's ways to utilize different methods of actually making sure you have different folders and structures backed up within OneDrive if you put underneath everything else underneath the documents location. But again, it won't back up just a random folder on your C drive or anything along those lines. So that's one thing. If people start utilizing OneDrive itself, I do recommend people just save things in your OneDrive Office location for documents or your desktop location. But if you have a random folder on your C drive, it will not be backed up underneath OneDrive itself. So I hope I answered your question there. Any other last minute questions? All right, well, I think that's going to be it. I really appreciate everyone's time, taking the time out here to hopefully grab a bite to eat while you listen to me talk about OneDrive. I look forward to talking with you all further as we start developing out more lunch and learn seminars throughout the rest of the year. Again, next month, we'll be talking all about how to use web applications in Office 365. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I look forward to talking to you all soon. Thank you very much. Talk to you later. Bye.